Hey guys, Society Reviews here of my top 10 best movies of 2024. It's that time of the year again, and we reached a point where I take it upon myself to rank the top 10 best movies of the entire year. 2024 was a much better year as far as mainstream movies go. And if you're unfamiliar with a few of these films, I suggest you check them out as they're worth your precious time. But let's get this list started with number 10, Boy Kills World. One of the most common flaw in modern movies today is following the John Wick model of over-the-top gory violence, which audiences are not only desensitized to, but it's not even impressive to watch anymore. Boy Kills World finds a creative way to work around this by placing the film from the perspective of a silent protagonist who communicates with his inner voice. Boy Kills World is the Hunger Games for adults in a video game setting. Audiences will notice a variation of style and influence in this movie from other films that are blended into the film to make a more fun experience. Because the protagonist was emotionally stunted as a young boy given his uber-violent origin story, the character looks at the world as a video game, which allows him to mix story and great action with clever humor that complement each other rather than clash with the theme of the film. Boy Kills World is a movie that refuses to take itself too seriously and creates a world that audiences can get lost in, which makes it a cinematic experience worthwhile. Number 9 on this list is the film Your Monster. Your Monster is a story about a young stage actress named Laura Franco. After receiving an emotionally crippling cancer diagnosis, she is dumped by her boyfriend and playwright and is left emotionally devastated. Little does she know there's a literal monster who lives upstairs in her attic, and needless to say, he's not looking for a roommate. There's a Bible verse that says it's better to dwell in the wilderness than be with a contentious and angry woman. Your Monster is the perfect representation of that very problem, as the film is an emotional roller coaster of a woman's life who just can't pull it together. The audience is taken on a ride with Laura's character, which progresses throughout the film, and it culminates in the audience realizing that her sense of reality is falling apart as the film progresses. Your Monster is an over-the-top fun story about a young woman's mental break that mirrors 2022's film Pearl. When taken for what it is, Your Monster is arguably one of the best character studies of the entire year, and certainly worthy of being on our top 10 list. Number 8 is a film called Late Bloomers. Millennials get a bad rap, and for good reason, because despite growing up, many still refuse to actually grow up. Karen Gillan, who's known for her roles in the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, is one of the few actresses in Hollywood who still reaches out to do smaller movies. Late Bloomers is a story of a 30-year-old woman named Louise who has nothing going for her life at all. After a pathetic display of trying to get back with her boyfriend ends up with her breaking her hip and going to a rehab center with people who are twice her age, she is forced to get to know a stubborn, mean old Polish woman who she ends up befriending. On paper, this is a movie that shouldn't work, but the chemistry of Gillian and her co-star makes it work. The character of Louise is a down-on-her-luck woman whose life is spiraling out of control ever since her mother was diagnosed with dementia and left her nonverbal. The film will hit audience in the feels as it deals with the difficult life situations of loss, loneliness, and compassion. Karen Gillan gives one of the best performances of her career, playing the character that most will deem annoying, but is well written enough that you sympathize with her backstory, her struggles, and her road to redemption. If you are a viewer who has a troubled relationship or emotional relationship with their mother or their grandmother, this film is going to hit you more emotionally than the average viewer. Late Bloomers does not have a big budget or over-the-top Hollywood theatrics, but it's a simple character story of a woman who needs a much-needed reality check and learns to have compassion for her fellow neighbor along the way. Number 7 on this list is Ordinary Angels. Ordinary Angels is the story of a father who's dealing with the recent loss of his wife. Alan Ritchson, who plays the character of Ed, is struggling to raise $2 all on his own. One of them is in desperate need of a liver transplant. As the doctors project that she only may have another year to live, Ed runs into a woman named Sharon, played by Hilary Swank, and Sharon takes great interest in helping the family and going the extra mile that any stranger would go. The film deals with the topic of loss and how believers can feel lost and distance themselves from God in times of great struggle and suffering. But understand, the film is also based on the true story of what happened back in 1994 when the people of Louisville, Kentucky rallied around the father in desperate need of saving his child's life. The film is a great window into the positivity of humanity and how people will come together to help those in need at their worst moments. A film that makes you wish Hollywood would go back to making these kind of movies rather than the endless sea of nihilism that it produces weekly. Ordinary Angels is the ultimate comfort movie. Number 6 on this list is September 5. The 1972 Summer Olympics was one of the biggest displays of political incompetence the world had ever seen. For those who aren't old enough to remember that story, A group of Palestinian terrorists kidnapped the Israeli Olympic team and demanded a path to escape while threatening to kill the hostages. After several failed attempts to rescue the Israeli team, the incident ended on the tarmac at the airport, involving all the hostages tragically passing away. On top of that, you had the incompetence of the news media, who incorrectly reported that all the hostages had survived, only to have to correct that story with the worst possible news hours later. September 5 is not a story about good guys or bad guys, but rather a retelling of events that unfolded in a manner that can be as objective as it possibly can. A film shows a lot of similarities to the 2004 film Live from Baghdad, which was a story about journalists in Iraq in the early 90s. Because it's been over 50 years since this event took place, the film does a brilliant job of sourcing the eyewitness accounts and the videos from that time period to trace an accurate story about what happened during that horrific time period. September 5 is one of the strongest films of the year, one that is actually deserving of its award season recognition. Number 5 on our list is The Bike Riders. The Bike Riders is a story about the rise of a 1% outlaw biker gang named the Vandals that started their club after looking to kill time on the weekends racing bikes. However, due to their popularity, it ended up becoming one of the most notorious 1% clubs in the entire country. The film is a time warp back to American culture in the Midwest during the 60s and the 70s, and the cinematography of the film does a great job of making it look like that setting is in a completely different world compared to today. Tom Hardy plays the character of Johnny, who's the club president and the founder of the club, who got the idea from watching old 1950s television shows that he should create a biker gang of his own. The early portion of the movie shows the group as a very tight-knit group like a family that didn't involve itself in many illegal activities in its early days. When the group wasn't able to police its own from its inner circle, the ideology of the group began to spread uncontrollably, and more violent members began taking prominent roles, leading to the club becoming what it is today. The strongest aspect of this film is the acting and the strong performances from Tom Hardy, Austin Butler, and Jodie Comer. The film also provides you with many notable cameos along the way. When it's all said and done, The Bike Riders is going to be on the top of many people's best list for 2024. Number 4 is Hijack 1971. There's no beef more generational than the beef between North Korea and South Korea. Whether it's the hardcore commies of the North or the brand-happy capitalists of the South, you can always suspect that whenever a film comes out about the Korean region, about the opposite nation, a lot of unresolved issues are going to come to light. Hijack 1971 is a film that's based on true events. The central theme of the movie revolves around the consequences of actions and being haunted by both making the right and wrong decision. When a civilian airliner is hijacked by a North Korean terrorist hoping to defect from South Korea to North Korea, a pilot who experienced a similar hijack several years earlier is the only one who can stand in the way of total destruction. For Western audiences, it's always intriguing to see an international conflict from nations that don't involve the United States. As the film considers itself to be a disaster movie, the way it hooks audiences into the story is giving them a brief introduction of several characters who are on the play to relay the severity of the situation at hand. The film is a shining window into the actions of heroism and villainy. Despite understanding the antagonist's plight against his nation, his actions are clear. Hijack 1971 is a bold and brilliant film that showcases the tension of a dire situation that is done in a far better fashion than movies in the horror genre that look to achieve the same effect. Number 3 on this list is Kill. India has given us a few films over the last couple of years that have made Americans question the filmmaking that goes on in our own domestic industry. Here we have another Indian film entitled Kill that hopes to continue a slew of movies that raise the cinematic bar that can be found outside the Big Four Hollywood system. When it comes to the action genre over the last several years, we have seen a multitude of John Wick clones emerge to the point of oversaturating the market. This movie doesn't present its audience with a multitude of cannon fodder who are stabbed and shot without an ounce of regard of who they were or what they represent. In this movie, you feel the emotional gravity of every single person who was killed, which makes every act of violence heart-wrenching for the viewer. While the roles of good and evil are clearly defined in the film, that doesn't mean that the human emotions coming from our bad guys aren't felt just as hard as they are coming from our heroes. The brutality of modern action films are alive and well, and the kills that this film gives are so much more meaningful than previous attempts. Number 2 on our list is Juror number 2. Everyone hates jury duty, but imagine being part of a trial from a crime that you actually committed. It's pretty disgraceful to think that after a long-standing relationship between Clint Eastwood and Warner Brothers Studios, Warner Brothers would not do more than market and hype what's supposed to be the final film that Clint Eastwood directs in his career. Nicholas Hoult plays Justin Kemp, who is a recovering alcoholic who just got the word that he's called in for jury duty. The case is about a woman who got into a public altercation with her boyfriend and afterwards was found murdered and left in a ditch near a bridge. Most of the other jurors view it as an open and shut case against the ex-boyfriend until Justin realizes that he was actually responsible for the woman's death as he hit her with a car thinking that it was a deer. Justin didn't try to convince the jury that the ex-boyfriend is innocent without revealing that he was the one responsible for her death in the first place. Juror number 2 is one of the most intense films of the year from a storytelling perspective, and Nicholas Hoult gives one of the best performances of his career in a year that's going to define and elevate his status as an actor. Without question, Clint Eastwood's final directing performance is worthy of all the year's cinematic awards. And finally, number 1 movie of the year is Officer Black Belt. The number 1 movie of 2024 is a film that Hollywood would never make in 2024. A karate champion who decides to make a difference in his community by joining the police force and becoming a probation officer who hunts down and kicks the ever-living crap out of child predators in his area. When it comes to the genre of black comedy, the way that Hollywood presents the genre is making light of a horrific situation, such as death or sexual assault, because in the eyes of Hollywood, the comedy comes from making light of serious situations to the point where it feels like you're going out of your way to belittle them, or in the eyes of Hollywood, reveal their true evil nature. Officer Black Belt is the story of a young man who helps a probation officer capture violent sex criminals in the neighborhood, making it safer as a result. Officer Black Belt is a brilliant film that is part buddy cop comedy movie, of course with the laughs being at the expense of the perverted members of society. The film has a strong sense of humanity that many darker comedies remove from their movie. When it's time to get serious, Lee shifts gears and relies on his established skills, proving that he is a great hand-to-hand threat versus his adversaries. The tonal shift in the film allows our character to realize the magnitude of the job that he has. Officer Black Belt is a highly entertaining film that doesn't lose pace while addressing serious matters such as sexual crimes against children and the abuse of women. It is a film that gives hope for justice, law, and order, which makes it the perfect film to top our best of 2024 list.
아, 무섭다.